We're now learning President Trump pressured another Georgia election official during a phone call to, quote, find the fraud. This comes from a new report that has been confirmed to 11 Alive by a highly ranked source. The call happened December 23rd, weeks before the recorded phone call with Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. We previously reported on the leaked audio from that January 2nd call when the president urged the Secretary of State to find votes to swing Georgia's election result in his favor. This call was not recorded. According to the report, the president's intention, though, was the same. At the time, the elections investigator was leading an audit of signature ballots in Cobb County after allegations of improper signature matching. Mr. Trump said the investigator would be a, quote, national hero if able to carry out his request. 11 Alive legal analyst Paige Pate says the president's actions could be a crime on a state and federal level.
Under Georgia law, it is a crime if anyone willfully interferes with the official duties of someone who's assigned to either monitor the elections or has any official responsibility in compiling ballots and counting ballots. I don't think there's any doubt that an investigator with the Secretary of State's office is in the commission of his official duties when he's investigating potential election fraud.
Pate went on to say it would be a misdemeanor crime in Georgia, and federally it could be a possible obstruction charge. The Post reports Secretary of State Raffensperger calls the president's request to that investigator, quote, inappropriate.